The reading of my grandmother's will was scheduled for a Tuesday morning in April, and my brother called me the night before to say I didn't need to come. The lawyer moved it, he said. His voice was flat, practiced. Rescheduled to Thursday. I'll send you the new time. I was standing in my kitchen in Columbus, still in my work clothes, one shoe off and one shoe on. That's weird, I said. Mr. Hargrove's office didn't call me. They called me first. I'm the executor, remember? They go through me. I remember looking at the window above my sink, at my own reflection in the dark glass. Something about his voice. Too smooth. Too ready. Okay, I said. Thursday, then. We hung up. I stood there for a long moment. Then I called Mr. Hargrove's office directly. His assistant picked up on the second ring. The will reading was still on Tuesday. Nothing had been rescheduled. My name is Sylvia. I'm 32 years old and I work as a project manager for a mid-sized architecture firm in Columbus, Ohio. I've spent my entire adult life being the responsible one, the one who showed up, the one who read every document before signing, who kept receipts, who remembered birthdays and sent cards and called Grandma Eleanor every Sunday evening without fail, even when I was exhausted, even when I had nothing left. My brother. I'll call him my brother, because that's what he still technically is, even now, is 4 years older than me and has spent most of his adult life being the charming one, the one who got away with things, the one who could talk his way into a room and out of a consequence with the same easy smile. His girlfriend, who'd been in the picture for about 2 years by then, had a talent for making herself invisible until she wasn't. Grandma Eleanor died in February. She was 81, sharp until the very end, and she left behind a house in Asheville, North Carolina, a small investment account, and a will that Mr. Hargrove had helped her draft and update 3 times over the past decade. The last update had been 18 months before she died. I knew about it because she told me. We talked about everything, Grandma Eleanor and I. She called me her sensible girl, and she meant it as the highest compliment. She had left the house to be sold, with proceeds split between my brother and me. She had left the investment account, about $345,000 after taxes and fees, give or take, split equally between us. She told me this herself, over the phone in November. She wanted me to know. She said she'd talked to her lawyer and everything was in order. I drove to Asheville that night after I got off the phone with Mr. Hargrove's assistant. 6 hours. I didn't tell my brother I was coming. I booked a motel near downtown, texted my boss that I'd be working remotely for a few days, and sat in the parking lot eating gas station peanut butter crackers, trying to talk myself down from the feeling that had taken root in my chest. Maybe I was wrong. Maybe my brother had genuinely gotten confused. Maybe there was a simple explanation. I ran through every version of that story I could think of. None of them held water. At 9 the next morning, I walked into Mr. Hargrove's office in a gray blazer and my most serious flats. The receptionist looked up, a little startled. I told her I was Sylvia, here for the 9 o'clock. She said she'd let Mr. Hargrove know. My brother was already in the waiting room. The moment he saw me, I watched something happen in his face, a quick collapse, like a building whose supports had just been quietly pulled. He recovered in less than a second. He always did. Sylv. He stood. I told you Thursday. I know what you told me, I said. I sat down in the chair across from him. I thought I'd come anyway. His girlfriend was beside him. She looked at her phone. My brother opened his mouth, closed it. Then he smiled, easy and practiced. Great. Good. More the merrier. We sat in silence for 4 minutes. I know because I watched the clock. Mr. Hargrove came out and shook both our hands and led us into his office, which smelled like old paper and wood polish and the particular stillness of rooms where serious things happen. He had been our grandmother's attorney for 22 years. He had a photo of her on his desk from some charity luncheon in 2018. She was laughing at something off camera, her head thrown back, genuinely delighted. I looked at that photo while he arranged his papers, and I felt the grief come up fast and hard and then settle back down. There wasn't time for it. Not yet. Before we begin, Mr. Hargrove said, folding his hands, I want to flag something. He looked at my brother. I received a document last week, submitted as an amendment to Mrs. Eleanor's will, dated approximately 14 months ago. signed, apparently, by Mrs. Eleanor's will, dated approximately 14 months ago, signed, apparently by Mrs. Carthak, Eleanor, and 2 witnesses. My brother didn't move. I want to be transparent, Mr. Hargrove continued. I have significant concerns about this document. The signature doesn't match the exemplars I have on file for Mrs. Eleanor. The witnesses are not known to me, and I cannot verify them. I've been in contact with a forensic document specialist. He paused. I wanted both of you present before I said any of this. The room was absolutely quiet. I looked at my brother. He was looking at the desk. What did the amendment say? I asked. My voice came out steady, which surprised me. Mr. Mester. Hargrove looked at me with something careful in his eyes. It redirected the investment account in its entirety to your brother. The House proceeds remained split, but the $340,000 per this document would go to him alone. I heard a sound come out of my brother's girlfriend that was almost nothing, a sharp inhale, quickly swallowed. That's not what Grandma Eleanor wanted, I said. No, Mr. Hargrove said quietly. I don't believe it is. My brother finally spoke. His voice had a different quality than usual. Thinner. I found that document in her files. After she passed, I thought it was legitimate. You submitted it to my office, Mr. Hargrove said, 6 days after her death, because I found it in her files. He said it again, like repetition could make it load-bearing. Her files, Mr. Hargrove said carefully, which are held here in this office, as they have been since 2019. Silence. I had spent 6 hours in the car the night before, running through every possible explanation. I had wanted, badly, to find one that didn't lead here. I hadn't found one. And now I was sitting in a leather chair in a lawyer's office in Asheville, watching my brother's version of the story disintegrate in real time, and I didn't feel triumphant. I felt something worse. I felt the particular sadness of being right about something you desperately hoped you were wrong about. I'd like to understand, I said, and I was talking to my brother now, not to Mr. Hargrove. Just help me understand. Did you think I wouldn't show up? Did you think I wouldn't call his office directly? Or did you just think that if it was in front of you, you'd figure the rest out later? He looked at me. For a second, just a second, I saw something real in his face. Not remorse exactly, more like recognition. Like he'd known this moment was coming and had simply chosen not to look at it until it arrived. Sylv, he started. Don't, I said. Please just don't. Mr. Hargrove cleared his throat. I've already been in contact with the authorities. Given the nature of the document, the dollar amount, the circumstances, this is a matter that goes beyond my office. My brother's girlfriend stood up so fast her chair scraped back. We should leave, she said. We need to talk to someone. You're welcome to go, Mr. Hargrove said. He was the calmest person in the room. I've thought about that a lot since. But I'd encourage you both to understand that leaving doesn't change the documentation. She was already reaching for her purse. My brother sat still for a moment longer. He looked at me one more time, and I don't know what he was looking for. Mercy, maybe. A way out. That I could give him. I didn't have one, and even if I had, I don't think I would have. He stood. He left. The door didn't slam. That would have been too dramatic, and my brother had always understood instinctively how to exit a room. I sat in that office for another 40 minutes. Mr. Carr. Hargrove walked me through everything. The original will, the timeline of the fraudulent document submission, what would happen next. He had already retained the forensic specialist. He had already flagged it with the appropriate authorities. The wheels, as he put it, were already in motion. Your grandmother, he said, near the end, was very clear in her intentions. Every version of this will, going back 12 years, reflected the same wishes. She wanted you and your brother to have equal shares. I nodded. I was looking at her photo again. She talked about you often, he said. She was proud of you. I managed to thank him without my voice breaking. I consider that one of the better things I've done. I walked out into the April morning and stood on the sidewalk in Asheville for a while, just breathing. The mountains were there, the way they always are, like they're not impressed by anything. The air smelled like early spring and someone's coffee from a shop down the block. The city was going about its business completely indifferent to the fact that I had just watched my brother walk out of a room rather than answer a direct question. I called my mother from the parking lot of a coffee shop. She's the kind of person who needs a minute to process things, and I gave her that minute. Heard her breathe, heard the silence stretch, heard her say finally, very quietly, "I was afraid of something like this." "You knew." I didn't know. The way he was talking about Grandma's accounts after she passed, the questions he was asking me, I didn't want to think it. None of us wanted to think it. That's the thing about family. You extend the benefit of the doubt until the doubt is the size of a house, and there's no benefit left. My mother came to Asheville that weekend. She drove 4 hours from where she lived in Greenville, and we sat on the porch of my motel. It was that kind of motel, with plastic chairs outside each door, and we talked until the sun went down and the mountains turned purple in the distance. She cried once, in the middle, about things she didn't say directly. I held her hand. I was still so angry that it felt like a low-grade fever, but I wasn't going to make her the target of it. The investigation took 11 weeks. I know that sounds fast. It felt both fast and endless, the way time moves when you're waiting for something. The forensic specialist confirmed what Mr. Hargrove had suspected. The signature on the amendment was not Grandma Eleanor's. The witnesses? 2 names I'd never heard, addresses that turned out to be a UPS store and an apartment that had been vacant since 2022, could not be located. My brother's girlfriend, it emerged, had a background in legal administrative work. She'd been a paralegal for 3 years before leaving the field. I didn't know that until the investigators told me. My brother cooperated eventually. I think he calculated that cooperation was the better bet at that point, and he's always been good at calculating. He gave a statement. He answered questions. He told them it had been his girlfriend's idea, that he'd gone along with it because he needed the money, that he hadn't thought about what it would mean for me. That last part, I believe. Not because I think he's a good person right now, but because I think he genuinely didn't think about what it would mean for me. That's almost a worse thing to know about someone. His girlfriend was charged with forgery and fraud. My brother was charged as an accessory. The legal process was long and dull and expensive for everyone involved. I won't pretend it was satisfying in the way movies make you think justice is satisfying. It wasn't. It was exhausting and sad, and it involved a lot of waiting in hallways and reading emails from lawyers and calling my own attorney to ask questions she'd already answered. What I will tell you is that the investment account was protected, the original will held. I received my grandmother's intended share, $170,000, split as she'd always wanted. I put half of it into savings and used the other half to open a small business account. I've been building a consulting practice on the side for 2 years, project management for small architecture firms and independent contractors, the kind of work no one thinks of as a business until you realize you're doing it for free for people who could afford to pay. Grandma Eleanor knew about it. She'd asked me once if I'd ever thought about going out on my own, and I told her maybe someday, and she'd said in that way she had, not gently but warmly, someday is just today with an excuse. I registered the business 6 weeks after the investigation closed. I named it after her middle name, not her first name, which felt too big, too much like a monument, but her middle name, which was simple and hers and which she'd always said she liked better anyway. My brother and I don't speak now, not because I issued some formal declaration or sent a long email I'd agonized over. I didn't do any of that. We just stopped. He tried once, about 4 months after everything concluded. Sent a message that used the word complicated 4 times in 6 sentences, which told me everything I needed to know about where he was in understanding what he'd done. I read it twice. I didn't respond. I'm not sure I ever will. My mother still talks to him. I don't ask her not to. She's navigating something I don't fully understand, the particular grief of watching a child become someone you have to grieve while they're still alive. I try to have patience with it even when I can't quite find the patience. I call her on Sundays. We talk about other things, mostly. Sometimes she says his name and I go quiet for a moment, and then we keep going, because that's what you do. What I didn't expect, going into any of this, was how much of it would be about grief and how little of it would end up being about anger. I was angry at first, genuinely furious. The kind of clean, righteous anger that almost feels good because at least it's simple. But anger is expensive. It burns through you fast. What was underneath it was something softer and harder at the same time. Just the sadness of knowing that someone who grew up in the same house as me, who shared the same grandmother, the same Sunday dinners, the same memories of her voice, could look at a number and think, that's worth more than she is. Grandma Eleanor used to say that people show you who they are, not in how they treat you when things are easy, but in what they reach for when they think no one is watching. She said it about other people, over the years. I didn't know she was also saying it about her own family. I didn't know we'd need it. I keep a photo of her on my desk now, a different one than Mr. Hargrove's, mine from Christmas 2 years before she died. She's wearing a red cardigan and looking at something just past the camera. A little skeptical, a little amused, like the world is doing exactly what she expected, and she finds that both tiresome and funny. Some days I look at it and feel mostly okay. Some days I sit with the whole weight of it, the loss of a grandmother and the loss of a brother and the loss of the version of my family I'd somehow kept believing in longer than the evidence warranted. But the business is real. The work is real. I have a desk by a window and a client list that grew by 40% in the first year, and on the days when I sign a new contract or close out a project or just sit in the morning quiet with coffee before the day starts, I think about how she said, "Someday is just today with an excuse." I stopped making excuses. She would have liked that. I've thought a lot about what made my brother believe he could get away with it. Not in a bitter way, more like the way you turn a strange object over in your hands, trying to understand how it was made. He's not a stupid person. He knew Mr. Smast. Hargrove had been Grandma Eleanor's lawyer for over 2 decades. He knew I called her every Sunday. He knew, somewhere in him, that I paid attention. And he did it anyway. That tells me the calculation wasn't really about me at all. It was about the money and the moment and the fact that he needed something, and the want was louder than the judgment. That's the thing I keep coming back to. Not the forgery itself, not the fake witnesses or the paralegal girlfriend or the document submitted 6 days after we buried her. Those are just the mechanics. What I keep coming back to is the want. The way it can grow so large inside a person that it crowds out everything else. Consequence, decency, the memory of a woman who loved him without condition for his entire life. He sat at her bedside in her last months. He gave the eulogy, and then he drove to a copy shop or wherever it happened, and he signed her name. I don't say that to condemn him, exactly. I say it because I think it matters to understand. When we talk about people who do things like this, we like to think they're fundamentally different from us, that there's some line they crossed that we'd never approach. I'm not sure that's true. I think the line is closer than we want to admit. What keeps most of us on the right side of it isn't some inborn virtue, it's the daily practice of choosing the harder thing, of asking not just what we can get away with, but what we can live with. My brother stopped asking that question somewhere along the way. Maybe gradually, maybe all at once. I don't know. I may never know. What I know is what I chose. I chose to make a 6-hour drive on a Tuesday night instead of taking his word for it. I chose to call Mr. Hargrove's office directly. I chose to sit in that leather chair and ask a direct question out loud, even though part of me didn't want to hear the answer. None of those felt like brave decisions in the moment. They felt like the only logical next step. But I've come to understand that's what integrity usually feels like from the inside. Not dramatic, not triumphant, just the quiet insistence on not looking away. Grandma Eleanor built a life on that same insistence. She wasn't a soft woman. She was warm, genuinely warm, but she was also clear-eyed in a way that some people found uncomfortable. She didn't pretend things were fine when they weren't. She didn't smooth over the hard truths to keep the peace. She just named what she saw, plainly and without cruelty, and then she moved forward. I watched her do that my whole childhood, and I didn't fully understand what I was watching until I needed to do it myself. The business is real now. The clients are real. The work I do every day is real. None of that came from the inheritance. It came from everything that was already in me before any of this happened. The money just cleared the runway a little. What actually got me off the ground was the same thing that got me through that Tuesday morning. The decision to keep going when stopping would have been easier. That's what she left me, not the $170,000. That